can an interior designer show us how to live better?
A lot of people use possessions to feel better, but really what they're doing is they're locking down and pushing away the things that don't feel good.
Where do we locate those hidden parts of ourselves?
It is so painful to own your shit. And if you can soften, if you will, and realize you're not going to die, then you can begin to go there.
How do we find wisdom from our surroundings?
The pretty answer is waking up enough to get to a place where we are comfortable and happy with any outcome.
Hi, I'm Andrea Morales. This week, apartment therapist Maxwell Ryan on 9 Questions with Eric Oliver. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Dre.
So, Eric, how did you come to meet Max Ryan?
All right, so I first met Max in 1998. He was working as a teacher at a Waldorf elementary school at the time. And let me explain this because it comes up in our conversation. Now, Waldorf schools are the brainchild of Rudolf Steiner, and he was this quirky, esoteric philosopher who lived in Austria about 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. And Max is a big believer in Steiner. Now, Steiner has some pretty odd ideas. For example, he believes that there's like the spirit world that's all around us, and we're evolving to become more conscious of this world. And I was always kind of skeptical of these ideas, but, Max would continue to surprise me because he would sometimes just spout out some great insights or some creative inspirations. And so I said, okay, well, open to that.
So when did he become a world famous media mogul?
Well, okay, then that's an interesting story. So in 2001, Max decided to change careers and become an interior designer. Now, all of his friends were a little skeptical, but Max kept up with his own vision like he always does. And he said he wanted to start by cleaning and decluttering all of our closets. And we were like, okay. And then he said he wanted to blog about it. And this was in the old days where blogs weren't even a thing yet. And we were like, okay, whatever. Well, to make a long story short, Max's blog about cleaning out our closets became a wildly popular website called Apartment Therapy.
And it's now one of the top places to go if you're looking for any wisdom on how to decorate your home.
Yes, nice plug there. In addition to having a lot of great ideas about apartments, though, Max actually has a lot of great ideas about living well. So I thought he would be a fantastic person to ask my 9 questions on how to know yourself.
What you're about to hear is the edited version of Eric's conversation with Max. If you'd like to hear the full conversation, including Max's story of how he went from a Waldorf school elementary teacher to running one of the most popular websites on home design, head to 9-questions.com. Here you'll find a link to our Patreon page. We are happy to make our full content available to our Patreon supporters who help us make this program available ad-free.
So Max, what are you?
I feel like this question needs to be answered in the simplest and most expansive way. And where my head's going as you're saying this is not what am I, but what are we? Like, what am I when I'm with you? What are you? What am I? What? Steiner said we are a physical body, which is created by our parents. But at the moment of inception, there's something else that comes into us, which is the spirit. And there are spiritual bodies living all around us all the time. When a baby is born, if you will, they come down and they choose. That's the moment when they enter in. So we're a little bit of our parents, but we're really I am this other thing, this spirit that has come into this body to enter into life and learn something from being alive in the physical world.
So you're a manifestation of a spirit, or you're a vehicle for a spirit to evolve itself?
Right.
Uh-huh. And so do you feel that? Do you have any sense in yourself of, your spirit that is inhabiting you, or where your spirit is in its evolutionary trajectory?
Yeah, I think I do. I think dimly. And I learned this as a teacher. You look at kids and you look at their parents and you go, oh, this boy he's got this mother and this father. But because you spend all day in the classroom, he's different. He's not that father and he's not that mother. He is his own special being. And so if I look at myself, I think there's a lot of me that I inherited from my mother and my father. But there's this other stuff kicking inside of me that the more it's woken up, the more I feel like I'm not a stranger to my parents.
Yeah.
but I am not them. There's something else going on here.
And do you feel that something else has a kind of an eternal, ethereal quality to it? Like it's not tied to your body?
Yeah, no, it's not tied to my body at all. I mean, my body is like a vehicle.
Yeah.
Sometimes a good one, sometimes not a good one. and it informs. And it's like when you meet someone, I've been thinking about this lately because I'm thinking about romance. As you get older, romance has less to do with what someone looks like physically and more to do with how you experience their energy. Ultimately, your romance is about connecting with another energy. If you're really connecting with energy, you probably don't even know what they look like or what they're going to look like.
What is your purpose?
The best person who's ever answered this that I felt like that's spot on for me was Garrison Keillor. The meaning of life is just to be alive and to experience it. But to experience it. The purpose of life is to be conscious to your life. There's no goal.
Yeah.
There's no mountain you have to climb. There's no, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. No, it's just waking up to what the experience of being alive is. And most of us are asleep. So the purpose is just to wake up to it.
How are you waking up for yourself?
Well, that's where I think the spirit part of our being operates. I think there are spirits that want to wake up a little more, and there's spirits who are more asleep. And I think my experience with myself is there's something spirit in me that is drawn to the wake up.
Do you feel your spirit's antsy?
Yeah. If I beat myself up at all, it's about being awake. It's about not missing an opportunity to experience or see, or that's sort of the stuff that gets me. I'm not a big religious, knowledgeable person. Spirits keep coming back, and they do incarnate. We do incarnate. So the spirit keeps coming back through multiple bodies. I think the coming back is to re-experience and see if we can grow more, a little bit more. And I do believe in that. And so we're all at different places. Some are more asleep, some are more awake.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing as you're describing that comes to my mind is like, there's something about like, oh, if the spirit is coming and I'm its vehicle for this round, there is something very liberating about that. There's a sense of like, you know what? I don't have to be responsible for everything because in the end, I'm just one turn of this cycle, and I can kind of relax a little bit more. And
I wish I felt
that. I can let go.
I guess you're right. I guess if you're willing to go with the fact that it's bigger than me, I don't have to be so self-involved.
Yeah, it doesn't end in me.
Yep. And I'm going to have another swipe.
Yeah, I'm the means. I'm not the end.
Although that can also be very disheartening. I mean, you can go down a tunnel where you're like, gosh, am I just going around in a big wheel?
Well, the interesting thing about the question of purpose, like, are we trying to find purpose as emotional salve? Like we're trying to find a purpose that makes us feel better? Or are we actually trying to find a purpose that helps us live better? And I think a lot of the times what we think is our purpose or what we identify as our purpose is just something that's trying to help us feel better.
Yeah, I think it could be a trap to get stuck on what you're talking about, which is the sort of acquisitiveness of life. But you're right. There's awake is conscious. Asleep is unconscious. There's things that we do in our life to keep us unconscious. A lot of people use possessions to feel better, but really what they're doing is they're locking down and pushing away the things that don't feel good.
Who are you really?
I don't know. But what you're making me think is that spirit part that I was talking about in the first and second question, or whatever, that's the me really. And I don't know myself fully yet, so I don't know.
Does the spirit that is inhabiting you, does that have relationships with other spirits? Because I'm assuming that are you the vehicle by which it connects with other spirits? Does it connect with other spirits in spite of you or outside of you? Or is it through you? Or is that just two totally different dimensions?
Yeah, when you're in your body and you're in the world, that is how you're going to experience other spirit. I think you're in this life to live it out through your physical body and your family and everything that you're given, and you experience others the way they're living it too. Yeah, we're basically meeting one another, experiencing one another through going to dinner parties and walking in the street. I don't think there's like something else going on, like where actually my spirit's on the other side of the world having a date with another spirit and then it's going to come back and tell me.
Okay, because I was thinking about your earlier comment about romance though. Is the romantic connection something that's just happening in terms of a personality dynamic, or does that actually involve some sort of spiritual resonance with someone else? And is that what's behind that?
All right. So what I've learned about romance is it's actually a little bit of both. So you have your spirit inhabits your body, is not in charge. Very young, sort of, right? It has to wake up, right? You have to wake up.
Yeah.
So what's really in charge is your child self. And that stuff is all formed by living with your parents when you're 10, 11, 12 years old. It's like, as humans, we're role model formed. And we act out that until we can heal it or grow beyond it into our higher, more spiritual adult self. And that's sort of maybe where your spirit is saying, but how do we get there? So with romance, what I've learned through Alyssa, my therapist, is we tend to meet the people we need to meet to cause us the pain that we need to grow. So we're going to do it again and again until we stop doing it. That's the wake up. So the again and again is coming absolutely through your parental childhood growth growing up. Mm-hmm. It's sort of the mud of where you came from, and that's different from that person over there and that person over there, person over there. And it's the spirit who uses that pain, if you will, to either take the opportunity or not, to go, I don't want to do that again. How can I grow? And eventually you can get above all of the childhood modeling, molding, and scars, if you will, and live in your more higher adult spirit being.
Max, what are your dreams telling you?
Dreams like dreams of my life, or dreams like last night? Either one. Either one. My dreams are telling me, stay here, keep doing that thing, because it's good. It's taking us somewhere.
Where are your dreams taking you?
They're taking me. Well, it goes back to the previous question. They're taking me to a place where I wake up and I am more awake. I'm more conscious. I'm seeing, feelings, sensing more, hearing more.
Do you feel that that's because during your sleep, you're processing something in your dream, or is it that you wake up and you're like, oh, I was dreaming about X, and I can now see things differently as a result? Kind of your post hoc, you're looking back and like, oh.
Well, I would say for me, the dreams are lovely, but it's that experience of being refreshed, and how that feels before, during, and after. Is what they're telling me. It's like, we got more here.
Okay.
More of this.
Well, then I want to take this back to a comment you said earlier about you feel your spirit leaves your body when you sleep. And does that relate to the quality of your sleep? And do you think that has something to do with that feeling of refreshment and awakeness?
Well, according to Steiner, it does. Yeah. I mean, I'm not aware of what is happening while I'm sleeping, but I don't disbelieve he saw it, experienced it, so he was able to teach it. And he says our spirit, sleep is the time it goes back up into the stars, and it sort of recharges with all the other spirits in like star energy. That's where the spirit energy is, up there. And then it comes back down, and you wake up, and we're recharged, refreshed. My experience is, in the morning, after all of that, I'm calmer, more awake, more grounded. And I literally, I don't know I'm sure you've had this experience. You have a really good night's sleep. You wake up on a Saturday. You tend to wake up earlier. The sun is rising. It's quiet. You make a cup of coffee. It's like, dong. There's like this experience of being alive, which is palpable. You have a late night. Don't wake up so early. And you wake up in the morning and you're foggy. Literally, people say, oh, I feel foggy or crunchy this morning. Or this, that.
Yeah.
What that is I'm not fully conscious, because I've got cotton wool over my brain, and maybe also my spirit didn't get to recharge. So my dreams are telling me more of the former. That's the path. That stuff is going to it's a redounding investment. And I can feel it in the last year that it's saying, more of this. We want to do more of this. Let's do more of this. It's going to take us somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be it's the path.
What moves you?
I get really moved by creative expression, creative stuff. The first thing that comes to my mind is I haven't done it in a while, but often in wintertime we'll get up on a Saturday morning and go to the museum, and seeing often every single time there's something I'll see that moves me. There's something that makes me do two things. One, it just makes me feel something exciting, moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it also moves me in the sense that it says, I want to do that. There's like, I want to do that too.
You know, it's funny, as I've gotten older now, when I go to museums, I appreciate the image, but now I think about the creativity behind it.
Which is often what good shows tell you on the wall when you're walking through.
Right. But now, like now when I look at paintings, for example, I think about all the deliberate choices that were made and what was informing those choices.
So you asked what moves me. That's the exciting moment.
Yeah.
When you go to the show and you see the sketches of whoever and you go through room one and it's like, well, she was at the art school and copying the masters, and then they go into the second room, and then that summer they came back and they did this, and it shifts, and then you can see that it taking off. That's the creative moment.
And what does it feel like when you're moved?
It's a quickening. There's a warmth that comes up through my body. There's a quickening, of a little bit of excitement, of pleasure, of sort of a resonance of feeling. I said in the very beginning, like growing up, I think I felt like maybe in my home there wasn't a lot of outward expression of feeling or emotion, and maybe I wasn't even feeling much.
Yeah.
So how do you know you're moved? There's a feeling moment, and it's, in a cheesy way, but not a bad way. I will cry in a movie if there's something really moving, and that's a creative moment for sure.
Yeah.
Oftentimes films are good at manipulating, driving to that.
Yeah.
Whereas paintings are just sort of, one person can look at it and feel this way, and one person might not.
So I want to come back to this because I think this is kind of interesting. This idea or this contrast between a childhood experience where you grew up in a household where you felt like you didn't have a lot of emotional expression. Your emotions felt very, very shut down. And now as an adult, and in terms of your growth and evolution and trying to wake up, how are you opening up to your emotions now as part of that?
Not easily.
Uh-huh.
When you come from a childhood where feeling is dangerous,
Yeah.
it's not. It feels not scary.
Uh-huh.
But you get your heart broken, and you get with a good therapist who says, "Let's go into how does it feel? Let's go into it doesn't feel good." And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. No. And she says, no, this is where the path is. Let's stay with it. And so there was even an exercise we do, which is called you do it. You have an altar in your altar work, and you put all these photographs of yourself as a kid.
Altar as an ALTAR.
Yeah, like a place you sit.
Yeah.
And meditate. It's not a religious thing. It's an altar where you bring up your child self. It looks like you're sitting in front of all these pictures of yourself.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about actually plumbing the depths of probably not feeling good. Yeah, I'm sure there's people who have fabulously 100% happy childhoods, but I think everyone has parts of their childhood that they'd rather forget. So it's through bringing up that feeling and sitting with it and not sedating it or pushing it away or covering it up that I feel like I've cracked open ability to feel more, to express it, to feel it, to know it's there, sense it in the room, sense it in someone else. And I've gotten much more comfortable with being able to see it and express it and feel it and know I'm feeling it.
Who's writing your life story?
Well, I'm obviously have to write my life story, whether it's written or not, doesn't matter. I'm the instrument. I'm writing it, good or bad.
I mean, it's interesting because you are, right now you're in the middle of writing about your life story.
Yeah. I think the writing of your life story is the story that you leave in the memory of other people. In other words, that your actions through your life create a story that's experienced by many people, and that is your story. It doesn't need to be written down. You're writing it when you wake up in the morning and you start talking. You make choices. The needle falls onto the record. Who makes the music, the record or the needle?
Ooh.
Whoa.
Dude.
We're the needle. I think we've the grooves and the needle we choose. We make choices, and that's the music, and that's our story. And
what's the record?
I think the record is Actually, I'll switch. My uncle, who I think you might eventually meet, I was having dinner with him a couple months ago, and he's pretty cool. A couple cousins were there, and he was there, and he says, we're having dinner, but I want to go around the table. I'd like to hear what everyone is doing. So there's about 7 of us, and everyone around this table, and well, I'm just started nursing school, and it's great. I'm going to be doing this for the next year and a half, and everyone was like that. I was in a theater.
Yeah.
When it came to him, he started to talk about what was happening in him, like experiencing his life. He's in his 90s, and he'd just come back from a boat trip. But that wasn't what was interesting to him. What was interesting to him was he was at 90, he was experiencing a new part of life. And the way he started talking, it was like a completely different, it's like a show just started. He was narrating his own life show where it was a continuation of everything that had happened since he was a kid, but now it was here, and something was happening, and it was going to keep happening. It was like entering a movie, and he was the narrator of his own movie.
Yeah.
Very different from everyone else who just said, well, this is what's happening with me right now.
Yeah.
He didn't see anything as static. He saw everything on a continuum.
Yeah.
And he also felt pulled, not totally surprised that it was happening to him, because he was someone who was open to being on that stage. He knew he was on a stage. He just didn't know where it was going to go. So I felt like he was writing his life story when he was telling us that at dinner. I mean, he's the chief narrator of his story, and we certainly heard it. And I'm sure when I see him next, I'll get the next part of the story, and that's the story.
Yeah. Do you own your shit, or does your shit own you? Which is, it's interesting for, maybe I'm going to back up on this one, because this was an interesting question for you as apartment therapy.
As a declutterer.
Yeah.
As a clutterer.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair, I shit owns me, and now I own it a little better.
Uh-huh.
What comes to mind is, with your question, is your shit owns you, you're unconscious. You own your shit, you're conscious. So as soon as you start to wake up, it shifts. And you can see this with people. Typically, you can see it. Someone who you have a disagreement with a friend, and they blame you for doing something, and they're really hard on you. Are they able to take any responsibility for anything that they have done, or is it all your fault? Mm-hmm. And I noticed this with people lately. The ability to understand that it's take responsibility and own your shit, like you're describing. But the deeper lesson is it's really hard to see that you did it too, that you're a part of it too. It's not just all on them. And it's so easy to throw it all on them, and that's when your shit owns you. It is so painful to own your shit. There's a pain that you don't want to feel.
Yeah.
And if you can soften, if you will, and realize you're not going to die, if you apologize or say, yeah, I did a little bit too, and you're not going to die, because it feels like you're going to die, then you can begin to go there. But I think it's fair to say that there's a very good reason why we get defensive, because there's a little part of us that says, if we don't put these defenses up, we're going to die.
Yeah.
This person's going to, this feeling is not good.
Right. It's a threat. Like, it's an existential threat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is an illusion.
Well, the pain's very real, and the pain's unhealed pain that is coming from when you were 10 years old. And
how do you find love?
To find love, you first have to love yourself. You have to go back into that part of yourself that doesn't love yourself, that child self, that part that you sedate and anesthetize and want to cover up with all of the personas you described. Mm-hmm. And you have to learn to, in a sense, give yourself a big hug. If you can go through the growth of feeling that love for yourself, or that pardon for yourself, that you don't need another person to love, if that's, what people think. I also think, in my experience, if you don't have that, what we want is, I think the goal is, we want to feel enough self-love, enough self-confidence, enough consciousness, and then share that with another person who is feeling the same thing. And so, but where do we find it? We have to go down.
Okay, so where have you gone?
Specifically, the breakup in my marriage was so painful, and the pain was so great, and I was surprised that the answer was going down to seeing how I got myself into that fix, which went right down to my parents and my childhood, that's where you go. When you go down there and you go to your child self, what I saw is Alyssa, my therapist, had me do exercises for a year in the altar. And she said, I want you to go back and sit in the altar, and I want you to imagine yourself as 10 years old. And she told me what I was going to see, and I saw it. She said, you're going to see a little child, a sad little sick, you name it, child. It wasn't me. It wasn't like a picture of me. It was like this being.
Yeah, right.
It was like the end of Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's immediately what I was thinking about. You got that little like.
Yeah. And she said, that's you when you were 10. That's you. That's what you've been covering up. That's what's down there. So now you have to pick that up, pick him up, your child, and begin to love him, and you can take care of him. You're an adult, and because your mom's not going to do it, your parents didn't do it. Now you get that's your job, and you can do it. You're strong enough. You can do it. And as I did that over the course of a couple of years, that being got healthy. Mm-hmm. It literally, I could see him transform, and I think that's where love is.
Yeah, I had an experience like that on a meditation retreat where I was sitting there and I was sitting with a lot of pain, and I realized the pain was coming from this infantile source, and I had enough space, and I remember like there was I was just kind of witnessing this little boy part of me that was just in a lot of pain, and then it occurred to me, it's like, what if I give that little boy a hug? And so I visualized doing that, and I started feeling better. And I was like, oh, this is what it means to be your own best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that ability to kind of self-soothe in a very deliberate and loving way. And that comes with accepting your shit. Because it's like, okay, that's the shit. That little beast that's not pretty is there, but that needs some affection, that needs tending.
That didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like the real way it's going to get it ultimately, I mean, loving people around us are going to help, but the real way it's going to get is we attending to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the more I felt the more I realized, God, there's a really sick little puppy down there.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And then the more I did it, the more I felt I was looking outside myself less for love, acceptance, whatever. It was. I started to feel like, I've got a little bit of a foundation that I didn't feel before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Where are you going from here?
So Steiner divides life into 7-year cycles. So I'm 55. So I'm somewhere in the X cycle. I'm gonna keep going, keep trucking. I do think things change though. So things are changing. So like when I was married, I was with my ex-wife for 8-9 years. From beginning to end, marriage was like 7 years. Mm-hmm. Sort of a little life cycle. Then the last has been 11 years. Mm-hmm. But the last 2.5 have been in a very solid, deep relationship. Mm-hmm. Previous to that, so that's actually about 7. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit of, my parents were dying. They died over the course of about 5 years separately, and I was while I felt a lot of stuff grew and changed and was positive, I went from a marriage breaking down to watching my parents break down, and it was messy.
Yeah,
there was a messy period, and I stepped out of that 2.5 years ago and into this relationship, and that was a commitment and a grounding, and also seeing myself in a mirror every day, as opposed to previously, when I was basically single. And one thing I'm seeing now is this relation. We're taking a pause. We're taking 2 months apart. Is this? I've learned so much in being in close proximity with her that what works, what I see when I'm really honest with myself, and I try to be really honest with her. What is working and not working, we've saying. And to me, right now, it means we have to step back and go to our own corners and separate. That's not fun to do. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah,
that's not what I wanted. I thought this could be it. I want to go stay there forever. So it's been a bit of a wake up to go, you know what? I'm at a certain place in my life where I have to be honest with myself and not continue to do something that's basically keeping me asleep. And so that was a commitment I made to myself. So that means we had to go into this period of separation. And it feels absolutely right and honest to do.
Is it jagged?
Jagged?
Yeah, does it feel also? I mean, because I think when you say waking up, oftentimes waking up means we anesthetize ourselves to not feel jagged, to not feel the sharp, pointy aspects of our own complexes.
This is the opposite. This is actually, it's been jagged knowing that I wanted and felt like this was the right thing to do.
Uh-huh.
Now that we've just been apart for basically 2 weeks, it's a very little time, it feels clear. It feels, no, it doesn't, right now it doesn't feel jagged. Now it feels like, okay, you did it. That's the right thing to do. And we were very, very conscious with one another and the way we've been talking to one another and taking our own space right now. So it, as opposed to experiences like running away or throwing one under the bus, nothing of the kind. So it all feels really good. But it's like, oh, here I am again. You know, what are you going to do now? And so I'm hoping, planning, expecting that through taking on the wakefulness of the space, and this is the gamble, if something's going to come out of the wakefulness, something's going to come. I don't have to make it. I've already made it. I've opened up the space. The space is open now for something to come, and that's the invitation. I've created an invitation for myself for something to happen, and if I can hold that space as opposed to covering it up or sedating, anesthetizing all the other stuff, or burying myself and diving. Typically you do the wheel of another relationship. Then I think this next, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think this next period is going to be very exciting. There is a little bit of a clock ticking to wake up, and I think we can feel. I've been thinking a lot about it as you get older, is particularly when you feel your body getting older, and you realize, oh wow, your body's not a given. Like crap, I mean. My knee's going to hurt, and it might hurt tomorrow. Like some of the stuff just isn't going to go away as quickly, or it may. My parents died, and one had cancer, and the other we don't even know what my mother had, and anything could happen. So what are we doing? What are we doing for the rest? That's the question, and I think the pretty answer is waking up enough to get to a place where we are comfortable and happy with any outcome, and even to be welcoming of death and not scared of it or running away from it and letting it come. And probably will live a lot longer as a result.
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
Maxwell, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been
Appreciate
a pleasure.
your openness, honesty.
Yeah. It's been fun to share it with you.
Okay.
So, Eric, what was your takeaway from your conversation with Max Ryan?
So this is kind of a difficult conversation for me to make commentary on because Max is a very old and dear friend. And I've seen Max struggle personally and firsthand through a lot of hardships and ups and downs and successes and failures and whatnot. And I also hear Max talking in this interview, and I hear this thoughtful side of Max. And I think this is the aspirational side of Max. And it's something that we all share. We all have these ways that we are trying to know ourselves, these ways that we are trying to be in the world, and they're what we aspire to do. And I think a lot of what Max talks about in terms of this idea of wanting to grow, in terms of wanting to move into pain and wanting to be more open to your lived experience at every moment. And that's great. And that's what we struggle for. And of course, then I see Max as my friend, and I see him and all the times he's not doing that as well. And he could say the same thing with me. And so it's a matter of also appreciating that we're human. We have these ideals that we strive for, and it's great to talk about them here and to elucidate them, but to also appreciate that, well, we're human beings, we're struggling. We're not always going to live up to our goals. We're not always going to meet our possibilities. So it's always finding balance between, on the one hand, what we want to be and what we aspire to be, and on the other hand, having forgiveness for the times when we aren't that way and we can't meet our goals, and what we learn from that experience and what we take away from it. And I think that's the central message I get from my conversation with Max. So thanks for listening to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you did. And stay tuned for the weeks ahead to more interesting and exciting guests answering my 9 questions on how to know yourself.
If you feel like you're getting a lot out of our show, there's another University of Chicago Podcast Network show you should check out. It's called Big Brains. Big Brains brings you the engaging stories behind the pioneering research and pivotal breakthroughs reshaping our world. Change how you see the world through research and keep up with the latest academic thinking with Big Brains, part of the award-winning University of Chicago Podcast Network.